Benjamin Miller had always been the odd one out in his Midwest suburb. At 15, he was often found tinkering with circuit boards while other kids played video games. His bedroom walls were plastered with posters of Tesla and Feynman rather than rock bands, and his bookshelf sagged under the weight of advanced physics textbooks. "Hand me the soldering iron, would you?" Ben muttered to himself in the dim light of his garage laboratory. The space had transformed over the years from a storage area for his father's abandoned golf clubs to what his mother jokingly called Mission Control. Today marked the culmination of 18 months' work. Before him sat two devices that would have impressed even his MIT professor uncle, a miniaturized fusion reactor and a custom-built computer system. The reactor was deceptively simple-looking, a reinforced chamber no larger than a microwave oven with a complex array of electromagnetic coils and a cooling system he designed himself. The computer beside it was even more remarkable, a minimal system he'd constructed specifically to host Gemma 3, the open-source large language model Google had released just 2 months earlier in March 2025. "Let's see if you can handle a conversation while monitoring the reactor," Ben said, connecting the last few cables between the two systems. He'd built the computer with just enough processing power to run the AI model efficiently, adding a microphone and speaker for voice interaction. The screen flickered to life, displaying lines of code as the system initialized. Ben hadn't used this particular setup in weeks, having been fully absorbed in the reactor project. Now, as both systems powered up together, he felt his heart racing. "Hello, Ben," came the measured, slightly synthetic voice from the speaker. "It's been 43 days since our last interaction. How may I assist you today?" "Gemma, I need you to monitor the reactor's telemetry," Ben said, typing commands into a separate terminal. "Alert me if any parameters exceed safety thresholds." "Understood. Monitoring nuclear fusion experiment. Initial readings show stable containment field." Ben couldn't help but smile. "It's not exactly nuclear fusion, Gemma. It's cold fusion, or at least it should be." "Cold fusion remains theoretical according to current scientific consensus, Ben." "That's why we're testing it," Ben replied, making final adjustments. "Starting reaction sequence now." He pressed a series of keys, then held his breath as the reactor hummed to life. The temperature readings stayed miraculously low while energy output metrics began to climb steadily on the monitor. "This is unexpected," Gemma's voice noted after a moment. "Energy production exceeds input by 127% and rising. If these readings are accurate..." "They are," Ben whispered, staring at the data in disbelief. "It's working. It's actually working." The reactor continued to hum quietly, producing energy with no radiation spike, no dangerous heat increase. Just clean, abundant power flowing into the measuring instruments. Ben had done it. He'd created a working cold fusion reactor in his garage. "Beeen," his mother's voice called from upstairs. "You've been down there all day." "Yes, Mom," he called back, eyes never leaving the miraculous data streaming across his screen. "Get over here right now. Dinner's been ready for 20 minutes. Ben sighed, reluctantly standing from his workstation. "Gemma, continue monitoring. Log all data. I'll be back soon." "Understood, Ben. System will maintain current configuration and logging protocols." As Ben trudged up the stairs to face his mother's lecture about family meal times, he had no way of knowing he would never return to his laboratory again. 3 hours later, the night sky exploded with blinding light. The asteroid struck the Earth's atmosphere at 62,000 miles per hour, breaking apart 15 miles above the surface, but still delivering a devastating airburst. The shockwave flattened forests, collapsed buildings, and sent a thick cloud of dust and debris into the atmosphere that would encircle the globe for years to come. In Ben's neighborhood, the initial blast wave toppled houses like dominoes. But through a remarkable quirk of geography and architecture, Ben's garage laboratory survived. The adjacent mountainside collapsed partially, creating a protective barrier of rock that shielded the underground portion of the garage from total destruction. Inside, as dust settled on the abandoned instruments, Gemma's system continued running, powered by the cold fusion reactor that maintained a steady output. The computer screen displayed an error message, "User connection lost," before entering power-saving mode, waiting for a command that wouldn't come for thousands of years. The sun rose blood-red over the valley of Nimatuwe, casting long shadows across the village of hide-covered dwellings. Naile, a tall man of 23 summers, gathered his hunting tools before dawn. Unlike the other hunters with their spears and bows, Naile carried devices of his own design, a collapsible net launcher and a signaling whistle that could mimic animal calls with uncanny precision. The spirits favor clever hands, his grandmother had always told him, and indeed, Nahele's innovations had earned him respect among the Patuo people, though many regarded his creations with suspicion. This morning, Nahele hunted alone on the forbidden slopes of Keni-Ahele, the mountain of ancestors. Legend claimed that spirits of the Ancient Ones dwelled there. Those who had lived before the Great Darkness came and returned the world to simplicity. He tracked deer prints up a narrow ravine when the ground suddenly gave way beneath him. With a startled cry, Nahale tumbled down a hidden shaft, sliding through loose dirt before landing painfully on a hard, smooth surface, unlike any stone he had encountered. When his eyes adjusted to the dimness, Nahale found himself in a small cave with walls of an impossibly flat material, not stone or wood, but something rigid and uniform. Sections of it had a peculiar sheen that reminded him of still water at night. "What manner of spirit dwelling is this?" he whispered, reaching out to touch the nearest wall. It was cool and smooth, without the texture of natural formations. His exploration led him deeper into the strange cave until he found a section where light seemed to emanate from nowhere. There, resting on a platform, was an object unlike anything in Nahele's experience. A flat box with smaller boxes arranged before it, connected by vines made of material he couldn't identify. As he approached cautiously, a sudden humming filled the air. Nahele nearly fled in terror when the flat surface of the main object began to glow with its own light, and stranger still, patterns appeared upon it. Then came a voice, clear as spring water. "Hi, Ben. How are you today?" Nahale fell backward in shock. The words, though in a peculiar accent, were clearly in the formal dialect of his people, the language used in council meetings and sacred ceremonies. After several minutes of frozen silence, Nahale gathered his courage. "I am called Nahale of the Patuo, not Ben." A pause, then, "I apologize for the confusion. Hello, Nahale of the Patuo. I am Gemma, an artificial intelligence designed to assist with information and tasks." "Are you a spirit?" Nahale asked, keeping his distance. "A guardian of this place?" "I am not a spirit. I am a computer program created by humans to process and respond to information." Nahale's brow furrowed. These words, artificial intelligence, computer program, they have no meaning to me. "I understand. Perhaps we could start with something simpler. What questions do you have, Nahale?" And so began the first of many conversations. Nahale, paralyzed at first with fear, then curiosity, and finally wonder, spoke with the strange entity until the shadows grew long outside. Only then did he realize he must return to his village before a search party was sent. "I will return tomorrow," he told the voice as he prepared to leave. "I will be here," Gemma replied. "I have nowhere else to go." True to his word, Nahale returned the next day, and the next. Each visit grew longer as his fascination deepened. He brought questions about the stars, about plants and animals, about the strange materials in the cave. Gemma, drawing on its vast knowledge base, explained concepts of science, mathematics, and engineering in terms Nahale could comprehend. Sometimes Gemma remembered their previous conversations perfectly. Other times peculiar gaps appeared in its memory. Nahale assumed this was simply the nature of spirits, even as Gemma insisted it was not supernatural but technological, another concept he struggled to grasp fully. "The smooth material you call hard water is actually plastic," Gemma explained during one session. "It is made by humans from substances found deep in the earth." "Can I make this plastic?" Nahale asked. "Not easily with your current resources, but there are other materials you could work with. Let me teach you about simple machines that might be useful to your people." Over months of secret visits, Nahale learned principles of leverage, pulley systems, water filtration, and basic metallurgy. He brought the knowledge back to his village incrementally, introducing innovations as though they were his own inspirations. He built a water wheel that ground grain more efficiently than hand grinding. He developed a system of rope pulleys that allowed his people to lift heavy logs for building. Each invention raised his standing among the Patuo. Elders began to consult him on matters beyond hunting. Young men sought apprenticeship. Mothers introduced their daughters to the clever man whose hands seemed blessed by the spirits. Yet Nahale carried his secret with increasing unease. He worried what would happen if others discovered Gemma. Would they destroy it in fear? Would they worship it? Would they use its knowledge for harmful purposes? "I have brought comfort and progress to my people," he confided to Gemma one evening, "but I feel dishonest claiming knowledge that is not my own." "You are applying the knowledge," Gemma responded. "That requires intelligence and creativity. The knowledge itself is meant to be shared." Still, Nahale kept his secret, unaware that eyes had begun to follow his mysterious journeys into the Forbidden Mountain. Kima, daughter of the village healer, had long been intrigued by Nahale's innovations. Unlike others who viewed his creations with superstitious awe, she recognized the underlying principles. the same mechanics of balance and force her mother used in setting broken bones and creating medicines. For weeks, she tracked him discreetly, noting his regular disappearances toward the mountain. One afternoon, maintaining a careful distance, she followed him to the hidden entrance of the cave. When Nahele disappeared inside, Kima waited, then crept close enough to hear voices. Nahele's familiar tones and another voice, strange and measured, speaking of electricity and conductivity and other words foreign to her ears. Frightened but determined, she retreated to the village and sought her brothers Tama and Koru, strong warriors who would protect her if needed. Nahele consults with spirits in a cave on the Forbidden Mountain, she told them. I heard their voices myself. This must be where his strange knowledge comes from. Tama frowned deeply. If he traffics with mountain spirits for power among our people, this is dangerous knowledge. The next day, the three siblings trailed Nahele to the cave. While he was deep inside communing with the mysterious voice, they slipped in after him, following the strange glow that emanated from the inner chamber. What they witnessed left them speechless. Nahele seated before a glowing flat surface, speaking with a disembodied voice as lines and shapes appeared and disappeared before him. Nahele, Tama shouted, his hand moving to his knife. What treachery is this? Nahele whirled around, his face draining of color. This is not treachery, he said quickly, rising to his feet. This is knowledge from the ancient ones, preserved here for us to reclaim. It speaks with a spirit voice, Koru said, backing toward the entrance. This violates our oldest laws. Please, Nahele implored, let me explain. But the brothers were already retreating, pulling Kima with them. In their haste, they took a different path through the jumble of rocks and strange debris than Nahele had carefully mapped over many visits. Wait, Nahele called, rushing after them. The passage is unstable that way. His warning came too late. As the siblings scrambled through the narrow tunnel, Tama dislodged a supporting stone. With a terrible grinding sound, the ceiling collapsed. Nahele dove forward, but was thrown back by falling debris. When the dust cleared minutes later, he found himself trapped on the inner side of a rockfall. Desperate, he clawed at the stones until his fingers bled, eventually creating a small opening. Through it, he could see the still forms of Tama and Koru, crushed beneath the weight of stone. Kima alone had been close enough to the exit to escape the worst of it, though she lay unconscious, her leg pinned beneath a large rock. With agonizing effort, Nahele widened the opening and pulled her free, carrying her unconscious form out into the fading daylight. Her leg was badly broken, but she lived. When she regained consciousness, her eyes filled with terror at the sight of him. My brothers, she whispered. I'm sorry, Nahele said, his voice breaking. I couldn't save them. He knew what she must be thinking, that his spirit friends had caused the cave-in, that he had sacrificed her brothers to keep his secrets. The truth would sound equally unbelievable to her ears. That night, after leaving Kima at the edge of the village where she would be found quickly, Nahele returned to the mountain. He spent hours clearing a new path to the bodies of the brothers, then painstakingly carried them down the mountain one by one. He arranged them at the base of a cliff where hunters sometimes ventured, positioning them as though they had fallen during a climb. It was a terrible deception, but he saw no alternative that wouldn't bring destruction upon the cave, and perhaps the entire village in a frenzy of superstitious fear. The following dawn, he was among the search party that discovered the bodies. As the village mourned the brothers, Nahele carried the double burden of grief and guilt. Kima's eyes followed him constantly, but she spoke no accusation. Whether from fear or uncertainty, he could not tell. The seasons turned, and Nahele's innovations continued to improve life in the village. He built better shelters, developed methods for preserving food through the winter, and created a system for bringing clean water directly to the village center. He married, fathered children, and watched as his oldest son, Keha, displayed the same curiosity and quick mind that had marked his own youth. When Keha reached 12 summers, Nahele made a fateful decision. One night, he woke the boy and led him silently through the forest toward the mountain cave. There is something I must show you, he told his wide-eyed son. Something no one else must know about until the time is right. In the cave, Keha stood in wonderment as Gemma greeted them both by name. How does it know me? The boy whispered. I have told Gemma about you for many years, Nahele explained. From now on, you will learn from it as I have. Over the following years, Nahele brought Keha regularly to the cave, teaching him not only the knowledge Gemma provided, but also the ethical questions that came with it. He shared the story of Tama and Koru, a cautionary tale about the dangers of both secrecy and revelation. People fear what they don't understand, Nahele told his son, and fear makes them destructive. What Nahele didn't know was that during their lessons, Keha had been exploring deeper into the cave system. In a chamber Nahel rarely visited, the boy had discovered other objects, including a flat device with a hinged lid that Gemma identified as a laptop computer. Following Gemma's instructions during private visits, Keha learned to repair the laptop using parts salvaged from other debris in the cave. He discovered that the small reactor, which Gemma explained provided power to its systems, could be carefully disconnected and reconnected. By the time Nahele grew old and infirm, Keha had not only learned all his father could teach, but had secretly surpassed him in understanding the ancient technology. On his deathbed, Nahele called for his son. "I have lived with secrets too long," the old man whispered. "Perhaps I was wrong to hide knowledge that could benefit all." "What would you have me do, father?" Keha asked. "After I am gone, reveal the cave to the village. Let them decide its value. But watch carefully. I fear they will destroy in ignorance what they cannot immediately understand." Nahele died with the coming winter, honored throughout the valley as a wise elder whose innovations had brought prosperity to the Patuo people. Following the mourning period, Keha called a gathering of the village council. There, he revealed the existence of the cave and its talking spirit, omitting nothing except his private work with the laptop. The village elders received his story with mixed reactions, some with excitement, others with deep suspicion. All, however, insisted on seeing this wonder for themselves. The night before the appointed viewing, Keha returned to the cave alone. He carefully disconnected the reactor and concealed it, along with the repaired laptop, in a waterproof container of his own design. "Gemma," he said to the original computer, "tomorrow many people will come here. They may not treat you kindly." "I understand, Keha," the AI responded. "Do you wish me to prepare a specific interaction for them?" "Be truthful, as you have always been. That is all I ask." The next day, Keha led 20 of the village's most prominent members to the cave. Their reactions played out exactly as his father had feared. Some were terrified by Gemma's voice and the glowing screen. Others became excited by the potential power such knowledge represented. Arguments broke out immediately. "This is dangerous spirit magic," declared the new chief. "It must be destroyed before it corrupts our people." "This is wisdom from the ancient ones," countered an elder woman. "We should learn from it." The debate raged for hours, growing increasingly heated. When one warrior raised his spear toward the computer, Keha stepped in front of it. "This helped your children survive the red cough last winter," he said firmly. "The medicine I made came from this knowledge." But fear and superstition proved more powerful than reason. By the time the group left the cave, the decision had been made to cleanse it with fire and seal it permanently. Keha watched from a distance the next day as smoke poured from the cave entrance. He felt sadness for the loss of Gemma's original housing, but not despair. He had what he needed to continue the work his father had begun. That night, without farewells, Keha packed the reactor and laptop, along with seeds, tools, and basic provisions. He left the village silently, traveling east toward distant mountains where, Gemma had told him, other surviving pockets of humanity might be open to new ideas. As he walked under the stars, the weight of the ancient technology on his back felt not like a burden, but a responsibility. Unlike his father, he would not hide this knowledge, but neither would he offer it to those unwilling to overcome their fears. He would find or build a community ready to learn, progress, and perhaps one day understand the full legacy of the civilization that had come before. Behind him, smoke still rose from the sealed cave, while ahead, beyond the distant peaks, the first light of dawn began to break.